IFW, the international voice of freight and logistics.
Thanks for tuning to IFW, the voice of the international freight and logistics industry. I'm Kizzy Nkwocha, and over the next few minutes we're going to be bringing you a roundup of some of the big stories that have broken over the past week in the world of freight and logistics. But before then, just want to say a happy new year to you. Hopefully you've had a good restful period and are ready for some of the opportunities of 2011. In fact, we've got quite a big celebration planned this year as we mark our 40th anniversary. Yes, can you believe it? IFW is officially 40 years old this year. Now, to commemorate this milestone in publishing, we're producing a special 40th anniversary issue of IFW. So, in order to do this, we'd like you to take part. We'd like you to get involved. We'd like you to send us images that you have taken, preferably from 1971, but if a few years, give or take, after 1971, I think would be great. Just some images to show us what the world of freight and logistics looked like back in those days. If you've got any pictures that you'd like us to use, please send it through to david.badger@informa.com. You can find David's details in the IFW bulletin and also on the website. But send us any images you've got, preferably from 1971, just showing us what the world of freight and logistics looked like. And who knows, maybe you too could be part of our anniversary issue, looking back at 1971 and hopefully towards the next 40 years as your leading provider of news in the freight and logistics industry. Okay, Katerina is ready to go, so I'm just going to hand you over to Katerina Kerr, who'll be bringing you a roundup of some of the big stories from the week of freight and logistics. Over to you, Kat.
Thanks very much, Kizzy, and welcome to another IFW Weekly News Roundup. One of the top stories of the week surrounds strike action at French ports. At the time of recording this news item on Friday, dock workers had planned a weekend walkout at the ports of Le Havre and Marseille, prompting shipping lines to warn customers of delays to cargo. Port operations at Le Havre and Marseille will be disrupted when members of the General Confederation of Labour stage weekend walkouts in protest at French government plans to transfer some jobs to the private sector. Maersk Line said that some vessels were waiting outside the ports after being given a berthing window while others had skipped the ports, whereas cargo on all vessels diverted from Le Havre would be put on feeder services and taken as close as possible to its original destination. Hapag-Lloyd said it was suspending calls at Marseille. It advised customers that all export shipments should be diverted to Barcelona or Genoa at the cost of the shipper, while imports would be diverted to these ports. CMA CGM said it was doing everything it could to maintain the calls of its services at Le Havre despite very difficult conditions. Now on to the top 5 most read stories of the week. The 5th most read story of the week, with 489 views, is Ferrymasters to downsize in Eastern England. P&O Ferrymasters is set to make 30 staff redundant in the UK as it looks to outsource more of its work. The logistics firm said it plans to make 5 staff redundant in Ipswich, 12 would lose their jobs in Hull, and 13 jobs were to go in Teesport. It also plans to return 27 tractor units. It had made the decision after conducting a review of its business in the region and said it faced a challenging and competitive marketplace. The 4th most read story of the week, with 674 views, is that MSC closes the gap as lines add to their fleets. Leading shipping lines boosted their capacity by 14% in 2010. The total capacity operated by the top 20 carriers had reached 12.3 million TEU by the start of the year, compared with 10.8 million TEU a year ago. MSC recorded the largest increase in its fleet in terms of capacity added, closing the gap on the leading Maersk Line by bringing an extra 375,000 TEU, a 25% increase. Meanwhile, Maersk's fleet grew by around 5%. Maersk now operates 14.5% of the container ship fleet, compared with 15% at the beginning of the year, while MSC has lifted its market share to 12.6% from 10.9% a year ago. The 3rd most read story of the week, with 757 views, is ocean freight rates should remain stable. Ocean freight rates will remain stable in the first half of 2011 if shipping lines have learned the capacity management lessons of the last 2 years, according to leading freight forwarders. Kai-Ying Chan Senior Vice President for Ocean Freight South Asia Pacific at DHL Global Forwarding, told IFW the lines were now more efficient in their ability to manage capacity through peak and low seasons. He said, "There were no drastic rate decreases through 2010 like we have seen in the past. Market levels stabilised during the slack season, and for weeks now shipping lines have been announcing peak season surcharges again on various trade lanes like the Trans-Pacific eastbound. Fleets are growing as per demand, and if demand is moderate in comparison to supply, shipping lines understand well enough how to balance that." Thomas Lieb, chairman of DB Schenker, said he also expected rates to be stable in 2011. The second most read story of the week, with 1,057 views, is Asia-Europe shipping lines delay planned rate hikes. The majority of carriers have delayed their 1st of January Asia-Europe rate increases as Japanese shipping giants express concern over the supply and demand balance. A contact at one freight forwarder has told IFW around 90% of shipping lines had delayed price increases of between $250 and $300 that they had planned for the 1st of January. But despite this, spot rates had still increased by around $75 to $100 per TE on the 1st of January, he said. Validity on rates was being offered by all but one carrier until the 14th of January, the new date when carriers were hoping to implement their price hikes. The forwarder suggested that the delay was down to a few carriers grabbing at market share, which had spooked others into following suit. And finally, the most read story of the week at 1,188 views is New Year warning over shipping line profits. The president of Japanese carrier NYK has warned that a widening gulf between supply and demand will hit shipping lines' profits over the coming years. Yasumi Kudo said he expected demand growth on services from Asia to slow from previous levels because of an ageing and dwindling population in Europe. He was more positive about Asia-US trade, which he believed would benefit from population growth, but said the majority view was that traffic growth in the West would be around 5% a year in the near future. NYK expected to post a profit of $973 million for 2010, but Kudo warned profits had weakened in the latter half of last year. This was caused by seasonality, but chiefly the loosening gap between supply and demand, he had said. He said carriers had learned that to keep freight rates at the required level, they must remove capacity to balance supply and demand. Well, that concludes IFW's first weekly news roundup of 2011. If you'd like any more information on the stories that I've mentioned, you can visit ifw-net.com, or you can go to our LinkedIn group, follow us on Twitter, and now you can join in the discussions on Facebook as well.
IFW, the international voice of freight and logistics.